So I'll say good morning. My name is Adele Gimron, and I'm the chair of the TCHC Board of Directors. Today's meeting is a hybrid meeting. Members of directors are some present in person in the main floor of 931 Yonge Street, and we also have some who are participating through WebEx. As I understand, the deputies it was recommended that they participate through WebEx. So I will begin with an acknowledgement that the land we all are on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. We also acknowledge all treaty people, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants, either in the generation or in generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. We pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent. I'd also like to acknowledge Toronto Community Housing today. And I think culture is very important to an organization. It can be very difficult to define and even harder to establish and sustain. This comes to mind as we both look for a new CEO and consider the traits that an individual needs in order to fit in to TCHC culture, and more importantly, as they need as a CEO. The cultural model at TCHC has been defined by 7 competencies. One's dealing with a healthy culture, including collaboration, fairness, respectfulness, and tenant focus. There are also ones that focus on performance, including accountability, solution-driven, and proactive. This model applies to staff, board, and tenants of TCHC. I know that there are a number of individuals who are involved in each of these board meetings as well as committee meetings, either participating or behind the scenes with material preparations. And we all bring a different perspective and we have different roles as we contribute to these meetings. But they're all equally important, and I certainly appreciate everyone's contribution to these meetings. What we all share here is a commitment to TCHC, its success in serving our tenants. We all know TCHC is a complex organization and issues are not easily or quickly resolved. But we are all here, whether staff, board, or tenants, in a collaborative, respectful forum, and the goal is to move TCHC forward in a positive direction. So I think it's important to acknowledge and embody this TCHC culture. And I ask that we all do that. And as we acknowledge TCHC's culture, I think it's a perfect segue for me to recognize the TCHC staff that facilitated my second regional tour yesterday. I spent the afternoon with the general manager, John Kralovic, the assistant general manager, Terrence Smith, and manager of tenancy management, Tanisha Allen, in the central region. I started the tour in the main office at 49 Lower Jarvis, and I received a very professional folder with details of the buildings that I was going to see, including the map of the central region. And I also got minutes of past integrated team meetings, just so I could get a sense of the issues that frontline staff are dealing with as they serve our tenants. And they're very complex issues. After receiving that and discussing it with John, I barged into the Lunchford and got to meet several staff members, including Jamar, Leandro, Willens, Tiffany Jr., and I know I'm missing some individuals, and I apologize if I haven't been able to name everyone. But just as I found when I went to the West, this experience was invaluable for me. I learned so much. Frontline staff are so knowledgeable and so committed to TCHC tenants, and their ideas are really thoughtful and very constructive. We talked about the hubs, we talked about pillars, we talked about arrears, we talked about capital and maintenance and tenancy management. And I really do hope that these frontline staff will be engaged. I know we're looking at hubs and we're looking at our pillars, but they have incredible, thoughtful ideas as to what is most efficient and effective as we repurpose some of these spaces. And I really do think their engagement will be invaluable to this process. And I hasten to add that maybe it wasn't included enough the first time around. So I hope we don't make that same mistake again. I got to visit Dan Harrison, location 155 Sherburne, and I went to the Moss Park buildings. It was really eye-opening for me. And the central region is very different from the west. I was honestly in the southern area, but I stood on a balcony of a unit that is being turned over. And you could just point to all of the buildings, and they're all walking distance. It's very concentrated as opposed to the west where it's driven from site to site. So it's very a very different dynamic in the central region. And I got to talk to city troopers, cleaning supervisors, CSCs, as well as tenant reps, and a gentleman at Moss Park who's lived there for 24 years and is the tenant rep, and he was incredibly knowledgeable and works really, really hard to engage the tenants. I found Moss Park, one difference from the central region to the west, the architecture in some of these buildings is absolutely incredible. And they have incredible histories. There was a small house that was owned by a small family. I also got to meet a number of tenants. One gentleman, Mad Dog, was at the Shooter and Sherburne Street location. Incredible guy. Anyway, he's I think 78 and had tons of stories, played the guitar with many Canadian bands, the El Combo, actually performed with ZZ Top and apparently has a ZZ Top ring that he's very proud to show off. But basically the day made me very proud. I know that my association with TCHC is insignificant compared to what these people are dealing with and doing for their tenants every day. But I was really proud that I am associated with this organization. And I would like to thank everyone in the central region for taking the time to spend with me and share their ideas. And they are incredibly invaluable. So thank you.
Good report, Bill.
Yeah,
Good report.
good sharing.
And guys, if you ever have the opportunity, it is an afternoon best spent. It really is. It makes a huge difference. Anyway, so I would highly recommend it. So now we're going to move on to the generational transformation of Toronto's housing systems update. And when we talk about what we can build together, Mayor Chow's plan constructing an additional 25,000 homes is the roadmap for our future plans. At its meeting on November 8th, City Council adopted with amendment that the report is called Generational Transformation of Toronto's Housing System to urgently build more affordable homes. And it's desperately needed. This report focuses on aligning housing priorities across city divisions, agencies, and corporations, and provides critical next steps to increase the supply of rent geared to income, affordable, and rent-controlled housing in the city of Toronto. So working alongside city staff, our colleagues at CreateTO, clearly TCHC is central to this plan for generational transformation in our housing sector. Yesterday, City Council's Executive Committee received a report entitled Advancing Generational Transformation of Toronto's Housing System, Aligning Housing Mandates and Strategic Efforts. This report outlines a number of recommendations that are meant to ensure a more consistent and strategic approach in how the city, TCHC, and CreateTO plan and deliver housing services. This includes more effective alignment of resources, mandates, structure, personnel that is intended to provide greater clarity, direction for each of the organizations and optimize existing resources and expertise across the teams in support of the city's housing targets. It recommends an amendment that TCHC shareholder direction is changed to facilitate the creation of complete communities, prioritizing net new RGI, affordable and market units in support of the city's housing targets, as well as ensuring the public retention of all sites designated for housing purposes, and ensuring that that's a strategic priority for TCHC and our board. TCHC did receive a draft copy of this report from the deputy manager, and we appreciate the request for input. I'd also like to thank Jessica for communicating TCHC's comments on the report, and I'd like to thank the city for their careful and respectful consideration of our comments. So thank you very much. Dara did send a link to the board yesterday to view the executive meeting. I don't know if anyone had a chance to do that. I was told by Dara that this passed with minimal debate. So if you blinked, I think you kind of would miss it. So, but if you did have the link, I appreciate that Dara provided it, so you can watch on YouTube if you would like. But there was nothing contentious that was dealt with at executive yesterday. TCHC staff will bring a report to the board on this item early in 2024, and we will have much more fulsome discussion about this at that time. In the middle of next year, we will support a report back to council from city's deputy city manager, development and growth services, that identifies a prioritized list of sites to be developed for housing purposes and provides recommendations, including any financial interventions to be implemented to support development work. So that concludes my opening remarks. Are there any questions or comments? No, hearing none. Perfect. So now I will ask if there are any additions or deletions to the agenda as presented today. So hearing none, can I ask if there?
Just a motion to approve the agenda?
I'd like to ask if there are any conflicts first. So if I could ask if there are any conflicts of interest as board members have in relation to any of the items that are on the agenda today. Okay, hearing none. Could I ask if, I did forget some of my opening remarks. I was supposed to give out my way, I think. Am I giving it?
Absolutely.
Yep, sorry.
Absolutely.
Sorry. So I just wanted to speak to TCHC's United Way fundraising efforts. So last month I was able to participate in the Games Day that was hosted by TCHC's employee networks. And it was great to see how passionate people are at TCHC about coming together to support this important cause. And some of the other recent fundraising initiatives, including divisional raffles, pancake breakfasts, and an online auction, are taking place. The operations team is distributing candygrams across the company. I don't think the board's included in that, but Last week, the development team and strategic planning and communications team competed in the first TCHC Master Chef potluck to raise money. So far, TCHC has raised over 75,000, and there's still more to come. We're looking forward to sharing the final number with you in the new year. And so I just wanted to thank everyone for supporting United Way and the important work that they do in the city.
$75,000 is impressive.
Yes, and I think they have big plans, so I hear. So I hope that they achieve their goals. I didn't hear any, I'm gonna go back to the agenda, I'm sorry about that, but so I didn't hear any conflicts of interest. So we will be holding items 8C, E, and F, as well as 9A, as we have requests to compute on those items. So could I ask if any other board members have, yes?
I have, just like to hold, an item on business horizon for question.
And I have,
Item number 5, yeah,
and I have a general question under number 8, which is already checked.
okay, number 8, and
Can I request item 6, please?
item number 6, yeah. Are there any other items that any board members would like to pull? I also have a general question on number 8. Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the agenda with the exclusion of 8C, 8E, 8F, 9A, 5 and 6? And I think I've covered everything. So can I have a motion? John? Seconder Debbie, all in favor? Perfect. And so we will move to item number 5. My team is gone. So we're on item number 5. Yes, John?
Just a question, in regard to the item on move outs. It makes reference to, repairs and renovations, total kitchen and bathroom renovations. Kitchen and bathroom repairs and renovations follow a service level time frame of 30 days from vacancy, inspection sign off. And general repairs have a 13-day time frame. How is it determined when a kitchen or a bathroom will be completely renovated? Is there a checklist? How does it work?
So through the chair, we get requests from the frontline staff in terms of their inspection of the units. Those requests then go through the supervisors or management in the regions and then subsequently to the move out team, which is a centralized team. We do interrogate any recommendations or requests for full kitchens and bathrooms. And I wanted to clarify that in many cases, we don't actually do a full renovation of kitchens and bathrooms. Oftentimes we do one-off repairs or what is required, but it's typically done at the regional level and then subsequently supported by the centralized team.
Okay, so because the question arises because I was surprised, you recall, at the cost of move outs which was it?
The average is $12,000 per unit, but that includes units that are much higher than that and many units where they're minor repairs.
Okay.
So it isn't that every unit gets $12,000 in investment, it's on a range. And we do our best to ensure that we're only investing and doing complete renovations where required.
So that was the question. So when we're like, obviously we're spending an average of 12, which is still high for the average move out. We're obviously spending, 50 or 60,000 on some. And how is it determined? Like, do they go through a checklist? How is it determined if the whole place basically needs to be, stripped down to the bare studs, before we, or whatever it is, before we rehabilitate it?
So through the chair, I don't believe there's a formal checklist, but I do know that there's a process by which management as well as the centralized team needs to confirm the extent of the renovation requests. So typically, if there are minor repairs that are required, that is the focus of the intervention. If there's significant repairs required, we typically replace the entire kitchen or potentially bathroom, depending on the extent of the repairs required. I don't believe there's a formal checklist, however.
Okay, all right, thank you. So all, Madam Chair.
Okay, no other questions on item number 5? So can I have a motion to receive? John? Miriam, seconded. All in favor? So we'll move to item number 6, and I think, Nick, this is yours.
Yeah, just a question on this. If I understand it correctly, we're being asked to approve directors who missed 3 consecutive board meetings without any approval, for missing 3 in a row. And I'm curious why we would do that.
So, through the chair, the city's requirement is that we report to them any director who has missed 3 consecutive meetings. What the report that's before the board simply asks is that the board consider, and the recommendation is that the board approve the absences of directors from meetings that have occurred since the last board meeting, not 3 in a row. And we put this on the agenda, frankly, to prompt a discussion at the board as to whether or not that is a decision that the board wants to take. Because we recognize that attendance.
Well, it was a good prompt, because if someone misses 3 consecutive meetings, that's like 4 or 5 months without, and there's an approval element to it as well, where like if you dialogue with the chair and it's sort of an approved absence, that's a different. So this is like unapproved, unexplained, three board meetings in a row not showing up. I would argue that there's an obligation on behalf of board members to show up, and in the absence of that, sort of provide an explanation that the board chair, I assume, it would be the appropriate authority to then, grant that. So I'm not sure where we should take this, but I'm not sure I would sort of intuitively just approve this.
3 board meetings, or is it 3 meetings?
3 meetings. The expectation, the city's expectation is that we report to the city absences from 3 consecutive meetings. It's not to be worded more clearly as to whether that's only board meetings or board and committee meetings. And I agree that the board has an interest in ensuring that directors regularly attend. I don't believe we've got any directors who are in the circumstance that you described, Director McRae, of having missed 3 consecutive meetings. This is simply an opportunity for the board to, at every meeting, turn its mind to whether or not there are any directors whose attendance is becoming a challenge. And it becomes an opportunity for the board in this context to provide any direction to management that it would deem appropriate as to what steps it wants to take if we have a director who's in that circumstance. I don't believe we have anybody in that circumstance today. So there's low risk of the board approving the recommendation in the report that's before it. But at every meeting, we put this on the agenda to prompt the opportunity for this kind of discussion if the board is interested.
So maybe it's a double negative, but I'm in favor of the city as the sort of stakeholder of the organization being aware if someone's missing 3 consecutive meetings. So I would vote against this motion.
And I think, and maybe that this could simply be a miscommunication. My understanding is that the recommendation is simply that the board approves the absence of directors since the last meeting in October. That's all.
I agree. That is correct.
Yeah, but this isn't a recommendation on the future. This isn't a recommendation on how we will act if people miss 3 in a row. This is simply, as a standard, we're approving the absence of any directors since the last meeting, because if we're finding somebody keeps being absent every meeting, then we need to engage.
Yes.
And nobody's in that position right now.
Well, I think and maybe this is we're getting the minutia, but if we're approving, I don't know to be honest, who was absent last meeting or not, but if we're approving that, then we're resetting the clock that if someone misses the next 2, they still wouldn't trigger. Like if they miss 2 more, in my opinion, that should trigger the notice. And if we're approving everyone's previous absence, we're resetting the clock. Is that a fair assessment?
Through the chair, that too is correct. So both positions are correct. We're not asking the board to excuse people who've been absent for 3 consecutive meetings in this report, but the effect of this report does reset the clock for a board meeting for a board member who has been absent. So I will, with the board's permission, what I think I'm hearing is that the board would like to see this report take a different form, and we can work with the board chair between now and the next board meeting to take a different approach to this issue. This is simply an opportunity for us to put before the board the opportunity for the board to have a conversation about director attendance if it chooses to do so.
And must have some clarity whether or not it's board meetings or committee meetings or subcommittee meetings.
We'll reach out to the city and get clarity on that point before we bring it back.
Okay, so could I have someone move approval of this as it exists
Withdrawing
now? We're going to change it for the next board meeting, is that my understanding?
We're deferring the motion.
We're going to defer the whole motion.
Happy to defer this to the next board meeting.
Perfect.
We need to vote on the referral?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so Joe and Debbie, seconder, all in favor? Okay, and so this will come to us in a new form next meeting, okay? So we will move to item number 8. And I have just a couple of general questions, but I think someone else, Debbie?
Yes, I have a general question, and I started chatting with our colleagues down at the other end of the table. Over the years, we've talked a lot about a social procurement policy in terms of the vendors that we use. So I'm just asking for an update on where we are with the policy. I know Lily isn't here, but I'm hoping that someone from her team, who is here, can speak to it. And I'm asking that because it appears that for larger contracts, we have the same group of people coming forward. But I also want to know what effort we're making as a corporation to break up some of these contracts so that they can also go to smaller vendors who tend to be racialized or women-owned or, and so just moving forward, TCHC's equity agenda.
Through the chair, if I may, so I believe that this was being led by by our procurement, but I know I messaged Hanan, our
Very good,
she's
thank you.
online, and this work is being led by the center.
Thank you, Barb.
Suggested.
Hannah?
Thank you, Barbara. Yeah, through the chair, if there's any questions on this, I believe the center will be addressing them. I was advised that they are formulating some report for the next BIFAC committee, which is in January, and that the direction will likely be more of a social corporate policy as opposed to a social procurement policy. Procurement will integrate some of the concepts coming out of that policy into our process. I hope that addresses your question.
Is there anyone from the center here? I'm assuming this is the center for Black people.
Is anyone here on the paper? No. It says no.
Okay, so I guess we'll have to wait until BIFAC comes back to the board then.
So I guess that'll be our February meeting.
Yes.
Okay. So can we have an action item that at the February board meeting, we need to get a report out on where we are with a social procurement policy, whatever it ends up being called?
Agreed.
Okay. I think we have a debutante on item 8C. So I have general questions, so I'll leave that to them. So who's the debutante on 8C?
Have we have this is-
Okay, Catherine,
Yes,
welcome.
thank you. Can you hear me okay?
No, speak up.
We understand you would like to depute on the contract award for employee benefits carrier service program.
Yeah, okay. So first I want to tell you the meeting participants in 931 Young, we can barely hear you. Like I have my volume up full and I can barely hear you. So I don't know if you can speak closer to the mic. But my volume's up full and I can barely hear you, Madam Chair, or the other directors. The other point I wanted to make is, as the public is watching right now, we can't actually see the number of directors in attendance. We can see a couple online. So I think normally we Zoom the room so you can see that they're actually, we have quorum and that the number of directors are present.
So do they not see that top?
No, I can see you only. And now I see Dara only. But I can see the online participants because they have their own screen. So yeah, so it's just, the camera is just moving one body at a time, but we can't see the entire table.
So I can speak to this. So Ms. Wilkinson, if you look to the screen where you can see me speaking now, along the top of the screen is a 360-degree shot of the room, and you can see everybody in the room. But I'm focused at the bottom because I'm speaking. The way the cameras operate is it shows the entire room and it highlights the person at the top of the room.
Okay, well, they actually look like little pinheads. That's how small they are when you look at the screen. So to the public, that's really not a very good visual. When it's at City Hall, we don't have this problem. I'm just pointing it out for transparency purposes. Okay, that was not my deputation. I just wanted to let you know we can barely hear you and my volume's up full. So please, if you can speak closer to the mics, that will help the people online. Okay? Right, okay, I'm gonna start now. I know Dara's gonna hit that start button. Okay, on item 7 on today's agenda, I believe the board considered the committee charters and mandates. And so within that, they would have made some decisions around the committees and responsibilities and such. I'm actually not sure why the employee benefits carrier report.
Sorry, Catherine, we've muted you for a minute. The chair was trying to interrupt and make a comment.
Okay, my understanding is the deputation is on item 8C. I can ask Sonia, but my understanding is we didn't get a request to depute on item number 7.
So Catherine, can you unmute? There you go.
So
Okay.
my understanding, Catherine, is that you're deputing on 8C, which is the.
Yes, Madam Chair, I was merely making reference that on an earlier item, we spoke to mandates and committee charters. And that is what this deputation on 8C is about, a matter that is that belongs to a different committee. That's my only reference. Okay, so you'll see when I get through it. Okay, so the issue I'm raising, this matter was discussed at the BIFAC committee, when in fact it falls under the mandate of the Governance, Communications, and Human Resources Committee. The Chief People Officer is a staff lead supporting the Governance Committee on HR matters. This includes things like labor relations, employee benefits, as they are all related to human resources. And as a former director on the Governance Committee, this is where these issues have always been handled. So there may be times when multiple committees need to meet, I understand that. And Toronto Community Housing is in its 6-year contract of their contract with Blue Cross, which means Toronto Community Housing currently has the option to extend this contract another year. I'm uncomfortable. We're asking the board to approve a 7-year contract when staff have not yet completed the review of the RFP. This is not a good business practice, and I'm not sure how the shareholder or auditor general would feel about us operating this way. Today is December 6th. There's 12 more business days before the Christmas break. There's still time for staff to complete the review of the RFP. Once they determine the highest ranked proponent and it's completed their review, they can come back to the board for approval. And as it's a time sensitive issue, if it's necessary, they could convene a board meeting on this one agenda item before year end. As to reporting back to BIFAC and the board in Q1, as I stated earlier, this matter should be going through to the governance committee as it falls within their mandate. And so as this is my shortest deputation today, please indulge me. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank management, the board, and frontline staff for your perseverance, for going above and beyond through challenging times and supporting tenants to make this a great place to call home. Thank you.
Would you like to add anything, Barbara, or?
Through the chair.
Thank you very much, Catherine.
Through the chair, thank you. I'd be happy to speak to that. So we have brought forward this report through BIFAC committee because it is a contract award and we are seeking and we are required to seek approval of BIFAC and the board given the dollar value of the contract. So that is why it was brought to BIFAC committee. In terms of the timing on this, I would like to make a correction. The existing contract is not a 7-year contract. The existing contract was extended already and expires December 31st, 2023. And we were required to go to market, do an RFP. We are at the very tail end of that RFP process. But the timing of knowing the successful proponent didn't exactly align with the timing of the BIFAC meeting and the board meeting. We were close enough to know that there was going to be one of two possible scenarios that would result, and that is what's outlined in the report before you. And so the reason we are seeking approval now is so that we can have board approval to move forward as necessary in order to ensure we have benefit services in place post December 31st, 2023, when the current contract expires. Is it correct that going forward, we have recommended a possible 7-year contract? So a 3-year contract with the possibility for 2 additional 3-year extensions. That's the 7 years going forward.
Are there any questions for Barbara? This matter, Debbie?
Why would we, given that the incumbent is X number of dollars lower than the non-incumbent, why wouldn't we just make the decision to go with the incumbent?
Thank you for the question. So, in fact, we don't have details. We did not have at the time of writing this report. We don't have details on the exact dollar value. We have details on the upset limit. It's not correct that the incumbent was a certain amount lower. What you see here is that in the event that the incumbent was not the successful proponent, because we would be making an award so late in the year, we need a period of transition time until we are ready. If we are going with a new vendor, we need a transition period. So we would need to extend the current incumbent for a 4-month period into 2024. And the dollar value associated with that 4-month period is what's outlined. It's not to suggest, it's not to suggest that the selection of the alternate, an alternate component is more.
Thanks for that.
Are there any other questions for Barbara as it relates to this matter? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion to approve contract award? Debbie, John, seconder, all in favor? Perfect. It's unanimous. Thank you very much, Barbara. Thank you, Catherine. I will move to item 8E. And I understand Catherine, I think that's, you'd like to decute on 8E. This is the award for the comprehensive deep energy retrofit at 575 Manford.
Yes, hopefully I have a little more success with this one. So this demonstration project we're undertaking, this could be a game changer, not just for these tenants, but also for Toronto Community Housing. to determine if the system, I don't know why there's feedback, could be implemented in other buildings in the future. Are you getting feedback?
We're not.
No, we're not.
Okay.
I'm getting it online, just for reference.
People online
So
should
it's
mute,
online.
should mute.
Mute.
So can I ask people online to mute? If that will help?
Okay. I know. Okay, so now that we know the board has approved increasing BIFAC's financial authority from 5 million to 10 million earlier today, these types of reports will no longer come to the board. And while this may offer some relief in the number of reports coming to the board, I do have some reservations around the transparency when decisions of this magnitude will be made by 3 board members versus 13 board members. 575 Danforth Avenue is situated in close proximity, sandwiched between residential homes on both sides. The construction noise, disruption, and additional traffic will also affect homeowners, and they will have their city councillor on speed dial. It may be in our best interest to meet with the newly appointed Councillor Parthy Kendavo once he gets acclimated in his new role at the city to garner support. We'll need to ensure that the residential homeowners are informed in advance of the work being done and anticipated completion date. While this work is being carried out, it will be incredibly disruptive. Construction site for tenants to live through between the in-suite work and the exterior work and the groundwork. We need to consider how much construction activity is too much for seniors to endure. When I saw the comment about the urgent need of roof replacement for this 65-year-old building, my mind immediately went to Swansea Mews. Now I know that that was a structural issue. The roof is leaking, causing potential health issues or collapse. Winter is upon us, snow's piling on that roof, which will cause further deterioration. It bears asking, why are these seniors still living there? Perhaps this project would be better suited as a revitalization project, which would require temporarily relocating these 16 units, which are bachelors and 1 bedrooms, until the work is completed and the new system is up and running. In the event that something goes awry during this demonstration project, we would have peace of mind knowing that it would not impact our tenants. It may improve project timelines and potentially reduce some costs. While I understand Toronto Community Housing is responsible for capital repairs, as this is a seniors building, I'm not sure if the Toronto Seniors Housing Board is aware of the proposal and has signed off. This project is both fascinating and terrifying at the same time. As indicated, some of these products, systems, and techniques are not yet commonplace in the market. Also of consideration, whether the mechanical components will be owned by Toronto Community Housing or will they be proprietary and require Toronto Community Housing to enter into a new service contract for certified technicians to do maintenance and repairs. Given the significance of this project, it might have been helpful for the board to receive a PowerPoint presentation to see visually, to truly understand the extensive work that will need to be undertaken to convert this building to an electric ground source heat pump heating system. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any comments that they would like to make? Okay, hearing none. Can I have a motion to approve item 8E?
Question on that.
Oh, sorry.
So on this particular item, thank you for the information in regard to the energy savings. The energy savings are estimated at 10,000 a year. Is that correct? I believe it's I believe on page 117, it refers to $10,139 a year. Correct. And so there's 16 units and we're spending $6.5 million. So that comes out to a 40-year payback on the investment. So it'll take 40 years to recoup the money that we're spending here. And I'm sure within that 40-year time period, we'll probably come back and have to do this again. When we look at the costs, the cost benefit of this, do we look at the payback period and what the savings will be over a period? It seems like we're investing a lot to save a little, not that it's not necessary. Having listened to Ms. Wilkinson, it's obviously necessary. This building is obviously in dire need. Is there some point where we say maybe we should just rebuild it? And I don't know what the cost, I have no idea what the cost is to rebuild this, but it's only 16 units too. So.
Through the chair, thank you for the questions. So you're absolutely right, that we do need to do the repairs in the building, and that it's sort of part and parcel. The energy reductions that we're going to get is a benefit of doing the work, and it's something that we look at when we're looking at a whole building retrofit. But primarily though, initially you would look at the need of the building, and we do need to repair the building. We have to bring it back to a state of good repair. The building has aged. In terms of replacement, that I think we had that little conversation that there simply isn't money for replacement. It would cost significantly more to replace it. So we do need to do something. And I don't want someone to think that the building is like falling down around people. It's structurally safe for people to be there. However, it's definitely been identified that it is a building that requires repairs. And while we're doing those repairs, it does make sense for us to look at other options in order to reduce energy. That is part of our requirement for the TCHC funding, is to see energy reductions across the portfolio of 25% over the 10-year period. So the energy reduction is important, but it is equally important that we have to do the work to ensure that the building can continue to be used for another 40, 50, and unfortunately there's no plan to replace all these aging buildings. So we do have to do significant repairs to them in order to make sure that we can continue to have them in our stock. I can, in response to the deputy's questions, I can assure you that absolutely Toronto Seniors Housing will be involved, and we work with all of our partners in operations, which Toronto Seniors Housing, we work with them as well in terms of getting the capital prioritization list, so they would be aware of this building. For a project this size, we do engage our what we call our PPS team, our Planned Project Services team, who provides additional supports to the tenants in the building, because we recognize that this is any construction is significant and disruptive to our tenants. But we know something of this magnitude will be more for the tenants. It is difficult though to just empty a building so that we can do the work. Like we don't have the luxury of vacant units, and then there's also the construction is disruptive to tenants. It is also disruptive to tenants to have to relocate, and you're generally, and I know through operations and through Jessica's relocation team, the chance of finding someone that can, like a place where they can stay in their neighborhood, where they have their supports set up, whether that be through an agency or through family supports or whatever, it is very difficult. We would, from a construction perspective, we would absolutely love to have a vacant building to do the work in, because quite frankly, it would make it a lot easier for us. But it is difficult to do that. So we do work with our partners in operations or Toronto Seniors Housing, depending on who is operating the building, to make sure that we identify the vulnerable tenants in the building, the needs that they have. If there is a tenant that does need to be relocated, we absolutely would do that. And that's really, as I say, we rely on our partners. They know the buildings. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other comments on our questions as it relates to this item? Uba's got her hand up? Okay. Thank you. Uba?
Thank you. It's just general question. When we're doing all this construction or what have you, is our tenants getting opportunity in terms of job opportunity and what have you?
So through the chair, that, it would depend on the contractor. We do have certain contractors, some contractors that do hire tenants. This wasn't specifically, when it was tendered, it isn't specifically tendered that way. It is tendered out to, through an RFP process, and then the company that bids on it, it is successful. With this particular, contractor, I can't say whether or not there are tenants. I know there are contractors that we have that do specifically employ tenants. But again, that's not a criteria that's part of the RFP process.
Sorry. Uba, did you have a follow-up?
No, thanks, Alan, for explanation, but I was thinking, and maybe this is a bigger conversation. I would like to see personally, whatever we're doing to incorporate that a way to support our tenants, because we have a lot of, tenants who have the skills and so we should just incorporate, whether that is to give incentive, ask companies to do that, or I don't know how it can be done, but I think tenants should be included. It should be maybe part of the benefits, that the same thing that we did when we doing the revise at Richmond Park, when we're doing in Lawrence Heights. Tenants should benefit, whether it is through employment, whether it is through scholarships and educations or what have you. So that way we are empowering tenants. That was my point. It's just a general comment.
Through the chair, I don't know if Anan's probably going to speak to our social procurement policy. We do, now it may not be specific to the contractor that won the award. We do absolutely, where we can, employ companies that qualify for our social procurement policy. They're often, they may not be tenant led, but they do have to have, I believe it's 50% tenant makeup in terms of their staff. And we will absolutely employ those companies when we can, that may provide additional services that are outside the scope of the general contractor. For example, if we have tenants that require assistance moving items, or if there's something else that's required that isn't part of the general contractor scope, that's more of assisting with the tenants. I'm thinking of like in a project this size, often we will acquire the services of a company, and building up as an example of one that we use. And they are social procurement, they qualify for our social procurement policy. And they will assist tenants with moving things. They will assist tenants when they require, if we need curtains, taken down, things such of that nature that are sort of normally in the course of construction, they would be done by the tenant. But in cases where the tenant isn't able to do that, then we utilize those types of services. So there are components. I just can't say that the actual contractor that got the construction is that, but we do absolutely use our social procurement policy to assist us with those types of activities, which happen often in large construction projects.
Thank you.
Did you want to add something? So your hand up earlier.
Thank you. Through the chair, Uba, I concur with Alan's comments, and social corporate policy should be in place hopefully soon. And essentially what that means is procurement will be an assistant or support to that policy, essentially trying to support our tenants who are skilled in a particular area to start off with a business or start off acquiring the right path towards being a vendor of choice. And we are also reviewing the policy at the same time, which is the procurement policy specifically, to integrate those aspects in it. Should hopefully have that done sometime at the end of Q1 next year. So not promising, but definitely suggesting that this is on our radar screen and we're taking it very seriously. So I hope this addresses your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Adele. And then one of the things that came through the governance committee at its last meeting was we've been asking over the years for the staff to report out to the board the numbers in terms of tenants who are hired on some of these larger projects, in terms of disaggregated by race and gender, and whatever else that you disaggregate by. Is that part of what you're thinking of bringing back in Q1 24?
So the numbers will likely be a response from our contract management software. So we're trying to deploy a contract management solution, which will come later, and that in effect will be procured to capture all our existing details and data. Accuracy will be really important for myself specifically, because I'm looking at kind of understanding how many of our vendors are currently tenant-based. So that will likely be more at the tail end of 2024, once we collect all the necessary contracts and information about our suppliers. So that's more at the end of 2024. We're in the process right now.
But are you collecting data in terms of tenants who are hired on some of our revitalization projects? And how are you tracking that based on who's employed as opposed to who's being trained?
At this time, I believe the data is existent at TCHC. It's just not centralized, and I'm trying to centralize it so that I have better access to it and be able to report on it.
Jessica, I think it's something to add to that as well, Debbie.
I can add to that if you like, to the chair.
Yes.
So through the chair, we obviously deliver a number of community economic development packages through our revitalizations. Those are all committed to by our developer partners, and we track each one of them individually based on the contract requirements and the CED agreements that are in place. We are looking to bring back to TSC an announcement with this board, a report back in June or July of this year, and make that a yearly report back that where we will share all of the outcomes of our ongoing training. There's training, scholarships, and jobs that are secured through those packages. So we're just looking to put that into a regularized format that we bring back and report on a yearly basis.
Very good. Do we know when we can expect the first report?
Well, it'll be an update report to a 2022 report that went to TSC, but we're looking to target a June, July TSC meeting.
Thank you.
Sorry, if I could just add one other thing. I should have mentioned too, our planned project services team that's part of the facilities management. There is a good percentage of those staff who are tenants.
Thanks, Ellen.
So I think this might be a little bit late, but Nan, welcome to TCHC.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So welcome on behalf of the board.
Thank
So
you.
thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing from you in the future. Are there any other questions as it relates to this item? Okay, my other comment, I think this is one, Alan, that I referenced about the referring to the 2023 budget. So I would like that changed in this report, and I think it applies to a couple of other reports. So I would like that to be updated. It's now part of your 2024. Okay?
Yes, thank you. We will do that, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And so can I have a motion to approve this vendor award? Item AE. John, thank you. Naram, seconder, thank you very much. All in favor? Okay, I think that's unanimous. Nick? Okay. Motion passed. We will move on to item 8F. And I understand we have a debt. It's Catherine. Okay, Catherine, 8F.
Yes, hello again. This is my last one for those of you who have had your fill. Let's see how I do on this one. Okay, so I'm talking about this vendor award, and my comments would apply regardless of, I mean, there's a couple of items on the different regions, but it's basically the same thing. So on page 2 of the report under project background and the scope of work, specifically, I want to talk about fire hose cabinets. So several years ago, the board approved portfolio-wide fire hose replacement to update the couplings, valves, and connections to comply with the fire code. This was done at a significant cost and done over several years. So for those of you who don't know, the fire department does not rely on property owners' equipment, and understandably, they use their own. There have been a couple of exceptions where the fire department does use our hose. The board was made aware that in some communities there had been tampering with the hoses and theft of fire extinguishers located inside the fire hose cabinets. To mitigate this risk, management advised they would be installing locks on cabinets where theft or vandalism was an issue. And caveat shape is scored into the glass, which means people need to smash the glass in order to reach inside the cabinet to access the fire extinguisher. I have over the years put out several small fires, none of my own, in my building by using the fire extinguishers provided, as have other tenants. When a tenant is able to extinguish a small fire in their unit, it prevents the spread of the fire, personal injury, loss of life, reduces damage to their property and to Toronto Community Housing. The fire extinguishers were accessed for the purpose they were intended, to put out a small fire. This is not tampering nor theft. Toronto Community Housing has now decided to lock all fire hose cabinets across the portfolio. There is no rationale to do this. Once the fire alarm sounds, it may take several minutes for fire services to attend. Often after a tenant has extinguished a small fire themselves, fire services will attend the unit, ensure the fire was safely extinguished, and reset the fire alarm. Today, if a tenant needs to use a fire extinguisher, they risk personal injury by having to smash the glass window with their bare hands in order to access the fire extinguisher. And they won't know that until they actually have a fire and run to grab a fire extinguisher. No notice was given as to why this was done or how this would change the way in which people can access a fire extinguisher in an emergency. This has also created additional work for site staff. They now need a key to unlock every single fire hose cabinet. In my community, there's 2 4-story buildings, so that's 28 locks that have to be unlocked and relocked so the super can examine the extinguisher and initial the tag every month. Imagine how many fire hose cabinets there are in a 14 or 18-story building. There are serious liability concerns for the landlord, where a tenant injures themselves trying to break the glass with their bare hands to access the fire extinguisher. So this has also created new costs for Toronto Community Housing, as they're going to have to constantly replace the broken glass. Locking fire hose cabinets is counterintuitive. You have done a great disservice to tenants and potentially put lives at risk. I have 2 things for the board to consider. 1, Toronto Community Housing has statistics on fires in all of its buildings. Remove locking mechanisms on fire hose cabinets in all communities where misuse or tampering has not been an issue. And 2, where cabinets absolutely must be locked due to tampering, provide instructions on how to access the fire extinguishers to minimize personal injury. And I just want to say in closing, this is one of those situations that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Thank you.
Does anyone have anything in the audience?
So I can too also. Through the chair is sort of a combined. The deputant is correct. There are certain buildings where we do lock the cabinet, and that has been based on historical issues at the building. It's not something that's done across the portfolio. We do, in conjunction with Nadia's corporate fire life safety team, we do review the incidents in a building to make that decision, but it isn't a wholesale policy across the portfolio.
And Nadia, did you have something you wanted to add?
A couple of things, so thank you. So through the chair, I do think I will like to take this offline as well, just to clarify some of the items referenced by the deputant in terms of which buildings where this has actually occurred and ensure we have a system in place before we make that determination, including communication with the tenants. So I would like to work with Alan and team to address that. And secondly, we've had extensive thefts, particularly on the fire extinguishers and metal items related to the units at significant cost to TCHC. So recognizing that, we're trying to mitigate that risk as well. Maybe it's a communication issue or clarifying which buildings this is in place, but happy to bring that back. Maybe not in a formal report, but certainly as an update to the board and a briefing note.
Okay. So we'll include that in the action items, but as I understand it, coming back with that information doesn't impact the approval of this item. So we can still have, are there any other comments to be made as it relates to item 8F? Okay, so could I have a motion to approve the vendor award? And Catherine, information will be coming back to the board. So can someone move approval? Nick. Nick, Uba, second. Thank you. All in favor? Okay, so thank you very much, Catherine. And that's included in our action list. And then we will move to item 9A. We have a deputant on 9A. And I'm not sure. It's Miguel.
Good morning. Hello, can you hear me?
Good morning.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Yeah,
Hi.
I can hear you.
Thank you. So, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this important item. I just want to go on the record that the audio is still being a little bit improved since the complaint that raised by Catherine. So there is a little bit improvement, but the big question is, what is the future of 931 Young Street? Is this a one-time option for today that we deputants are not able to speak in person? Or this will be a situation in 2024 that will be moving away from City Hall to 931? And the big question mark is, for those who are not following the news, what is the future of 931? Is it being constructed? Are we waiting for money? Anyway, we'll find out later. So my comments are regards to the ombudsman report that is on the action item for you to put attention. The human rights complaint, as is my understanding, is being developed. It's not yet a final approval policy. When I was consulted in many of our residents in June 2023 at 150 River Street, many of the residents were not aware of the full report of the ombudsman. They become aware of it, and as you know, it's a big report which 15 or something recommendations. Jack Sharma signed on it. Well, Jack has moved to the city, and I believe Tom Hunter is our interim CEO president. So I believe the responsibility of the implementation of the human rights complaint falls into the chair of Tom. But since he's just an interim, I will say maybe Nadia is next in line to take over that responsibility. But we wonder, it has to stick somewhere because someone has to be accountable and responsible of the implementation on the ombudsman's recommendations. So yesterday, I have an opportunity to be at City Hall and listening to the conversation with regards the ambitious housing plan of Mayor Olivia Chow. It is my understanding that the shareholders' direction with TCHC, the city, and other and create build TO, et cetera, will be modified to improve or enhance or help to achieve this goal of the office of the mayor. Fantastic. And I told Mayor Olivia Chow, are you aware that currently we have only 3 tenant reps sitting at this board, which are online, by the way? Thank you, Uba. Thank you for being there for us. Thank you, my brother, Marcel, and et cetera, et cetera. I believe that we need to have 3 more in 2024. And that is what I told Mayor Olivia Chow. Believe it or not, she took deep attention to this situation because we are going to enhance the number of RGI units depending on the new deal signed with the province. And we are just hoping that Justin Trudeau will drop a few coins as well so that we can move ahead with enhancing of more units, RGI, which basically is our request from the Regent Park Neighborhood Association. We have asked for more RGI units. In closing, I see my time is coming to an end. I submitted my deputation, a written deputation with all the amenities that you need to know and understand what's going on in terms of job creation in 220 Oak Street, which is one of the topics I want to bring to the attention in 2024. Also, the e-bike policy that we have submitted and we never received a reply. Thank you so much. And also the petitions that we submitted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments as it relates to this deputation for item 9A? Okay. Sorry, John. So could I have a motion to receive this report? Joe, thank you. Miriam, seconder. All in favor? Thank you. Motion passed. Are there any other matters to come before the board today? Okay, hearing none. Can I have a motion to terminate? No, I say adjourn now because every time I say terminate.
Well done. Motion to adjourn.
A little slow, but better late than never, right? I have a motion to adjourn. John.
Here, kidder.
Seconder, all in favor? They've got both hands up. You don't get 2 votes. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.